very much.
You can get it in the newsletter.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's not this week, next week.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I will be giving the official welcome to all in just a few moments after we hear a few announcements. The first announcement, the standing announcement, is please shut off your cell phones, silence them. And here are a few more that we have, and if anyone has any more announcements to bring up, please make sure they get into my hands before I'm done with our last one. First one from our speaker today, Tricia Gerrodette. This Saturday, April 27, starting at 9 a.m. at the San Pedro House, is an event called Celebrate the San Pedro. There will be nature walks, and art for kids. There's a raffle and a silent auction. Sounds interesting. Talk to Tricia if you have any other questions. Also from Tricia, we have another one. San Pedro Water Sentinels meet once a month during the summer to collect water samples and take some water measurements. It takes about 3 hours of your time, one day out of the month. Training to do this will be tomorrow. See Tricia for details. And from Molly, whom you can ask if you have questions about this one, the first Friday hike, May 3rd, not this coming Friday, but the week following, hike May 3rd will be at the Nature Conservancy property in Patagonia. Meet here at the church at 9 a.m. And then one that I wrote up, cribbing it from Reverend Tina, who put it in the newsletter, the installation ceremony for the Reverend Matthew Funk Crary will be at Mountain Vista UU in Tucson at 3:30 p.m. today. Reverend Rod Richards, some of us may know him, he has a real future in the ministry, I understand. He will be there. In fact, he's there right now at Mountain Vista UU giving the sermon this morning. And that is where Reverend Tina is as well, as I understand it. And one more. It's a joy. We will hold that till joys and sorrows. Any other announcements? We have the Free Thinkers, 1 o'clock today? 1 o'clock today, right here. Okay, talk to Roland if you have questions about that. Again, welcome everybody, and that includes everyone here in the sanctuary in person, as well as all those who are joining us courtesy of Zoom and later perhaps on YouTube. So those of us who are here in the sanctuary, if you are willing and able, if you would please turn around, maybe stand up and wave at all of our friends joining us courtesy of Zoom. Good morning all.
Good morning.
Thank you. We are a church of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hands. In our congregation, we do not share a common set of beliefs, but we do share a common intention to strengthen the powers of love, justice, and peace within us, between us, and in relationship to the web of all existence of which we are a part. My name's Wallace Hoggett. I'm facilitating this morning for our friend and fellow member of the congregation, Tricia Gerrodette, who will be giving the message a little bit later this morning. Whatever your background, wherever you were born, however long ago you were born, whatever your credit history might be, however long or short a time you spent in school, whoever it is you love and whoever it is who loves you, however strangely your story may have unfolded up to this point, you are welcome here.
Our chalice lighting is attributed to Noah Saleth, otherwise known as Chief Seattle, who had ties to both the Suquamish and Duwamish tribes in Washington state and lived from 1780 or 1786 to 1866. We belong to the earth. It's number 550 in our gray hymnal if you'd like to follow, but I'll do the whole reading. It's short. This we know, the earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. This we know, all things are connected, like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. We're a covenantal community, and as such, we support each other when times are bad, and we rejoice together when times are good. Here are the joys and sorrows that have been submitted to be read aloud. And we're also going to have one from our pianist today. All right. She also has a joy she's submitted, looks like, that she gets to leave doors and windows open and hear birds sing. Why don't you follow on with your own joy about being pianist?
Oh, well, sure. The thought reminded me when I discovered the topic for this service. My joy is that I'm so grateful for having had the opportunity to work and to live on several Native American nations in recent years. And truly, Chief Seattle said it best, we do belong to the earth.
Thank you. For those who couldn't hear, if you're on Zoom, Joy was telling us a bit about her background and where she's lived on some Native nations. All right, I have a joy here from Lex and Rita. Said, we enjoyed a beautiful day yesterday in Wilcox at a vineyard, tasting the wines, and our friends were a joy as well. Sounds like several joys there. A joy specifically for today, and it's nice to have them in the congregation, Dick and Georgia Nielsen, celebrating their 68th wedding anniversary. Woo! They got married at, 10 or 12, something like that, clearly. All right. Wally will now place the rest of the stones in the water to represent all the joys and sorrows within this congregation, whether written or unwritten, shared or unshared.
And shame on me for not mentioning this earlier. I was specifically asked to point this out as one of the announcements, but I'll point it out now, a little bit out of order. The flowers to my right, the left of most of you, are in honor of the House of Representatives passing the foreign aid bills, and that's why they're there. Yeah. Now we have a reading. The reading is a proclamation. Few concerns facing America and the world today are more compelling than the quality of our physical environment. All that we do, all that we hope to achieve for ourselves, all that we hope to create for our children will go for nothing if the world itself is made unfit to live in. The question of what we do with our environment is a matter of cosmic consequence. There is a limit to how long the matter rests merely with man, and if that limit is exceeded, the success of man as an earth creature may itself be limited by forces he no longer controls. The earth and its atmosphere are a closed system. They are finite. The good water cannot purify itself indefinitely. The good air cannot cleanse itself endlessly. And the good earth cannot sustain and repair the injustices of man forever. Man must help to put his own earthly house in order. We have made a beginning in this, but we have only begun. Now there must be a conscious, sustained effort by every American, and we might hope by every citizen of the world, if our posterity are not to look back in sorrow and wonder why, when God has created the earth and seen that it was good, man did not agree and leave it that way. Now, therefore, I, Richard Nixon, President of the United States of America, do hereby designate the period of April 18 through April 24, 1971 as Earth Week.
Wally found that reading, and we thought it was wonderful, and then the impact of knowing it was more than 50 years ago, and from Richard Nixon, we thought would be instructive. So, let's see, next slide maybe. Let's see what comes up. Rachel Carson. So Silent Spring was published in 1962 from work that she did in the late 50s. Can I assume most people here have heard of Rachel Carson and or the book? Yeah, okay. I knew about the book. I'm not sure when I read it, but when I came here, I used to be able to walk in open fields and see creatures. And one time in the late 1990s, I found a bird. I think it was a mockingbird. It might have been a shrike. I don't remember. And it was lying on the ground where it shouldn't be. They stay up in the air. And it was kind of quivering. So I took it home and put it in a box and in dark, quiet area, and checked with a bird friend of mine who was a rehabilitator. And when I told her what bird it was an insect-eating bird, she said, it's probably eaten a poisoned insect and it's dying. And there's nothing that could be done for it. And sure enough, it was dead the next morning. And she said, well, you gave it, quiet and dark, so that was not stressful for it. That was the best you could do. So that was like my personal experience with Silent Spring and pesticides, was knowing that even here, that was going on. This bird had found an insect, and it had indeed killed it. Our next slide. There we go. So this is what cities used to look like for a number of years. The smog that it got named as, I guess, was something I used to see not in San Diego where I lived. I was lucky, we had enough cool breezes from the ocean, and we didn't have too much in the way of heavy industry. But anytime the family made a trip up the coast to visit Disneyland, or I went to participate in tennis tournaments, we could see our approach to Los Angeles, and we could distinguish it by the smog that we were fortunate enough not to have too badly. But major cities looked like that in the 60s, for sure. It really was hard to see through, and some of that's coming back, sadly. The next slide shows a fire that it was really a big, memorable thing for a lot of people. For those who lived in the area, it had become a somewhat common occurrence. There was a fire in 52. Tina's caption says that this is from the 1960 fire. And then there was another fire in 1969 that was so short-lived, we think there aren't any photos of it. But this is what caught the attention of the country. And so in 1969, and following on things like Rachel Carson's work, we got a proclamation from our president about how important our environment was. So it was a national consciousness leading up to the first Earth Day. That was organized by a senator who visited the Santa Barbara oil spill. I don't think we have a picture of that, but that oil spill is still the third largest oil spill in the U.S. It's only exceeded by the 2010 Deepwater Horizon and the 1989 Exxon Valdez, and then comes Santa Barbara. I think maybe because I'd been driven by Santa Barbara a number of times. As it was our coast, it wasn't very far away. I was very aware of that oil spill. But because it was so large, it got a lot of national attention. Again, in this late 60s, very early 70s time frame of awareness being raised. However, before that, a man named Aldo Leopold, next slide, had done a lot of work in the 1940s. And again, have you heard of Aldo Leopold? Yeah, a few people are waving. He's probably best known for something called Sand County Almanac, in case you recognize the title. I think he's not well known now, but he's important in the environmental world. He had a hunting experience that converted him to being more about caring for the entire world of life and our human part in it, not just our domination. The concept of interdependence. And he wrote prolifically, and there's a foundation that has much of his work available online for anyone to download and read. So it's the Aldo Leopold Foundation. Out of the Sand County Almanac are some words that are very reminiscent of the Chief Seattle saying. He says, "Life is a beautiful dance of interdependence, and we must honor our partners in this dance. The Earth's resources are not unlimited, and we must use them wisely and responsibly. The Earth is a living organism, and we are all connected within its intricate tapestry of life." I would say that maybe Richard Nixon read some of Sand County Almanac to come up with some of the words that he used in that speech. So, back to the Santa Barbara oil spill. Wisconsin, at the time, the Wisconsin senator named Gaylord Nelson visited that spill, and he was inspired, if that's the right word, maybe he was horrified, to organize the first Earth Day the following year. And that date of April 22nd, 1970, was picked as a date because it was spring break, and they wanted young people. So it was the middle of spring break, and he tasked a grad student named Dennis Hayes in the fall of 1969 to be the national organizer. I was talking with Wally the other day about this thing that was organized. And this was before we had internet, which seems so common to us these days. But that wasn't around then. So Dennis had to organize young students in particular, but anyone joining in, with in-person, requests and talks and speeches to get people worked up, phone calls, U.S. mail. That's how to do it. There was no easy way to reach thousands of people. Ultimately, when they had Earth Day, it was estimated that with all the events around the entire country, that approximately 20 million Americans participated in marches and demonstrations. At the time, that's approximately 10% of the population. So to match that, we'd have to have 38 million people participating in marches or events. I don't think we could do that nowadays. I think it's become more like Earth Day is kind of year-round, in that I think people are aware of issues like water pollution, air pollution, plastics. All of these things are kind of in our awareness, at least, year-round. And so a single day dedicated to honoring or participating in Earth Day is no longer as important as it was. But that very first event was spectacular, to have that many people show up. And so this, the Earth Day event was after, actually, the State of the Union speech and the proclamation, which came later, about environmental issues. So clearly, the fact that he knew, surely, that millions of people were being organized to an Earth Day event. We'd had the major oil spill. We'd had other events. Rachel Carson's work had brought forth the issue of pollution. The president knew that this was a big deal, for most of America. So he honored it in the proclamation that we heard and in his State of the Union speech. So in 1971, Congress passed the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. All of those in this big year of political joining in, acknowledging that we needed to be doing better things to protect what we also needed to rely on. Also, President Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. So, big push. Today, Earth Day is celebrated in 192 countries. The mission identified for this year is curbing plastic pollution. That's kind of their big topic. Supporting regenerative agriculture, which is an issue that's been taken up by Interfaith Power and Light, and the UU Church is a partner in that entity, and climate change. So, big leader from my point of view on climate change is Bill McKibben. Next slide, I think. Oh, but before that, we have this cartoon that's been around a lot of years. I don't know if anyone can read it, but it's a session, whatever, who knows what. And we have a speaker who's going to be talking about preserving rainforests, sustainability, green jobs, livable cities, renewables, clean water and air, healthy children, et cetera, et cetera. And some guy in the audience is telling, expounding to someone else, what if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? I always like that. So the next slide is Bill McKibben. I became familiar with Bill McKibben's name in connection with the group called 350, 350.org. It's still around. Some fellow friends, neighbors, activists in Sierra Vista put together an Earth Day event, a 350 event. I kept the t-shirt for a lot of years. It was small, as you might expect in Sierra Vista, but we did it. Does anyone know what the 350 number is for?
No.
Anybody? Heather?
Parts per million, right?
Yeah, 350 is for 350 parts per million of CO2 in the air. And why did they pick that number? Roland?
Tipping point. Tipping point.
Roland says tipping point. That's not really correct, but anyone else? 350 is the number that was sort of agreed on by scientists as a good number for livable life on this planet, certainly for humans, that it was an optimal number. And so the goal was we need to aim for holding CO2 at 350. I was born at 310. The reading yesterday, it's updated daily, is 424. So we're not getting back to 350. Recently, Bill McKibben has started another effort. 350 is still going, as I said. And now, as a senior himself, he started a group called third act. And has anybody seen any news articles about some of their events or activities? Again, it's not big, I think, in the West. There is an Arizona chapter of Third Act, mostly in Phoenix, a few in Tucson, few people, organizers. They got some good press when they first started organizing protests in the East and agreed upon days, and mostly were at banks. They were wanting banks to divest from fossil fuels. And so old geezers like us showed up with rocking chairs, for the most part, if they had them. And so then they sat in front of whatever bank they were protesting as third act. And it's not limited to doing that with rocking chairs, but Bill McKibben has been promoting that as a concept for older people to show that they're still caring about the issues about the environment. And it's been a good connection, apparently, with younger people as well. They don't get the rocking chairs, but they have participated in some of the thirdact.org events. And so, again, if anyone wants to learn about what either 350.org is working on or Third Act, it's quite findable on the internet, and I invite you to join in. Does anyone have any particular Earth Day memories that they want to share? Gary's going to get the microphone in case you have one, something memorable you want to join in. Or what you would like to do or would like others to do. That's always a tough one. To help. And I'm glad Howard is here. I was afraid he might not be, but I'll bring up his suggestion from a few months ago, which is stop buying water in plastic bottles, right? That's an easy one, should be. Any other suggestions? Oh, wait a minute. Wait for the mic.
This is not a suggestion. It's just remembering what good times you can have being a demonstrator on behalf of the earth. One of the things we did in Seattle is I went to every thrift store in the area and I bought red tablecloths, and we made this huge long red. It took a lot of us to sew it together. And what we did was we stopped the coal trains that were going from West Virginia to be shipped to, so that they would be burned in Canada and also in China. Mm-hmm. And there was something magical about having this idea and having so many people show up.
Yeah, there's it's inspiring to be with other people. Yeah.
I would like to mention that when Mount St. Helens erupted, there was a giant cloud over the U.S., and I lived on the East Coast on Long Island, and I went out about 7 p.m., and here came the cloud, and I witnessed it, and it was quite a sight, all that pollution.
Well, my memory of the first Earth Day was my 15-year-old sister took me to the 1970 Earth Day. I just saw her a while ago, and she does things like use cloth napkins instead of paper napkins.
Very good.
Oh, somebody else?
whoops, sorry, Diane. I think Diane's raising her hand.
I'm hoarse, I'm sorry. I was doing my student teaching up at NAU for the first Earth Day, and the college kids were getting really involved, and they came to my 4th grade class, and they told about it, and they said, if you bring a t-shirt, we will silk screen Earth Day for you on your t-shirt. So, I mean, everybody was getting involved. My teacher went and bought t-shirts at the Goodwill because all my kids couldn't afford even used t-shirts, but they all had their shirt.
Something just came to my mind with all this talking about Earth Day. You're here? Okay. When I was living in San Diego for a long time, I grew up there. We had a lot of marches around Earth Day, and I remember participating in about 4, and there were, sometimes there was 100 people at least watching and marking, marching. And it was a really interesting time, and I wish we could do something like that again.
Else? All right. Thank you, everyone. I think we're ready to close out.
Thank you very much. For our closing words, we will hear a reading from Aldo Leopold, about whom Tricia spoke, an American author and environmentalist. His dates: he was born in 1887 and died in 1948. He was helping to fight a fire on a neighbor's property. This passage that I'm going to read is from a Sand County Almanac, and specifically a chapter within that called Thinking Like a Mountain. And in this passage, the author, Mr. Leopold, recounts an occasion when, as a young man, he and some others who were out in the wilderness heard the howl of a wolf. And they observed an old wolf and about 6 apparently grown pups. And Aldo Leopold's words: "In those days, we had never heard of passing up a chance to kill a wolf. In a second, we were pumping lead into the pack, but with more excitement than accuracy. How to aim a steep downhill shot is always confusing. When our rifles were empty, the old wolf was down, and a pup was dragging its leg into impassable slide rocks. We reached the old wolf in time to watch a fierce green fire dying in her eyes. I realized then, and have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes, something known only to her and to the mountain. I was young then and full of trigger itch. I thought that because fewer wolves meant more deer, that no wolves would mean hunter's paradise. But after seeing the green fire die, I sensed that neither the wolf nor the mountain agreed with such a view. Since then, I have lived to see state after state extirpate its wolves. I have watched the face of many a newly wolfless mountain and seen the south-facing slopes wrinkle with a maze of new deer trails. I have seen every edible bush and seedling browsed, first to anemic desuetude and then to death. I have seen every edible tree defoliated to the height of a saddle horn. Such a mountain looks as if someone had given God new pruning shears and forbidden him all other exercise. In the end, the starved bones of the hoped-for deer herd, dead of its own too much, bleach with the bones of the dead sage, or molder under the high-line junipers. I now suspect that just as a deer herd lives in mortal fear of its wolves, so does a mountain live in mortal fear of its deer. And perhaps with better cause, for while a buck pulled down by wolves can be replaced in 2 or 3 years, a range pulled down by too many deer may fail of replacement in as many decades. So also with cows. The cowman who cleans his range of wolves does not realize that he is taking over the wolf's job of trimming the herd to fit the range. He has not learned to think like a mountain. Hence we have dust bowls and rivers washing the future into the sea. And now, our postlude, and after the postlude, we can go in peace.
Watermelons that grow in the ground.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you all. Go in peace.